Hi there, this is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, and welcome to another random review. And today's random review is from 1999, and the film is Ravenous, directed by Antonio Bird, starring Guy Pearce, Robert Carlyle, David Arquette, Jeffrey Jones, Jeremy Davis. This is the Scream Factory edition. So this has a commentary with Antonio Bird and composer Damon Albarn of Blur fame, a commentary with screenwriter Ted Griffin and actor Jeffrey Jones, and a commentary with Robert Carlyle. There's also deleted scenes with commentary by Antonio Bird, a theatrical trailer, and a really fun interview with Jeffrey Jones. This is a film that was originally going to be directed by Milton Manchevsky, who had recently did Before the Rain, but he was fired 2 weeks into the film because the executives, he was producing rushes that they didn't think was the film that they were wanting to be made, so he was fired, and Robert Carlyle basically went on strike to demand that Antonio Bird, who was his partner at the time, direct the film. She was on the shortlist to direct the film in the first place, but was passed on. So she came on board. She had previously made Priest and Face, a gangster film with Robert Carlyle. And obviously they were seeing each other at the time, so she came on board. So there was already 2 weeks of footage shot. So the story follows Guy Pearce's character, who is a disgraced war hero who somehow took an enemy base during the American-Mexican War, set in 1847, and he basically pretended to be dead and somehow got into the enemy camp and somehow took it single-handedly. But his commander-in-chief knows kind of how he managed to do that through basically cowardice, so he gets punted into Northern California, into this tiny little fort in the middle of nowhere to essentially be forgotten about. There he meets Jeffrey Jones, who's in charge, and various other characters. There's a mumbling religious guy played by Jeremy Davis. Neil McCullough plays the rootin' tootin' action soldier. David Arquette, he plays a private who gets high most of the time with a Native American guy. It's a fairly ragtag bunch, and one night a rather unwell and frostbitten character turns up, played by Robert Carlyle, and once he recovers he tells the story of how he was part of a wagon train that got stranded in the mountains, and a very bad military man, once all the food had gone and once all the oxen and horses had been eaten, they started eating people. But he escaped, but there's still a woman left in the cave with this mad colonel. So Jeffrey Jones decides to take the ragtag bunch of soldiers, up to the cave to try and rescue the woman. But things don't necessarily go to plan. You can probably guess by the title of the film what the film on the surface is about. I mean, it's a film that's 21 years old, so you've probably seen it. But if you haven't, there is a cannibal vein that goes through it, as the kind of Native American myth of Wendigo. If you eat a man's soul, you have regenerative powers, you have greater strength, stuff like that. It's also nicely woven into a little bit of vampire mythos about joining a group and becoming a family. But really, Ravenous also works as a metaphor about America, and it's mentioned in the film. Robert Carlyle's character talks about the manifest destiny of the American people to cut a swathe across America to the Pacific Ocean, killing Mexicans, killing Native Americans, all in the name of what they believe is right. So again, the ravenous appetite for power and for land, it kind of works as a metaphor for that as well. And the price of sacrificing people's ways of life, and communities and populations, just so you can satisfy your appetite for land and power and strength and numbers and all of that good stuff. Genocide, basically. But this is kind of localised down to a little bit of cannibalism. The film, you could argue, sometimes has an unbalanced tone, because at times it is actually quite funny, mixed with obviously the darkness of cannibalism, which is quite a taboo subject, strangely enough. Jeffrey Jones is excellent as the kind of leader of this lost fort. Guy Pearce is mainly kind of internalizing. He's mainly reacting to other people as we learn about the truth of how he managed to take the enemy camp basically single-handedly, and his kind of reactions with Robert Carlyle. Robert Carlyle is having an absolute ball as this man Kilhooton, who we then learn he's perhaps not who he says he is, not surprisingly, as Robert Carlyle after all. And there's some nice support by the other actors. Jeffrey Jones' character has a really interesting arc, and he's beautifully played. The film was actually shot in Poland, in the Czech Republic, bizarrely, and they didn't actually have much snow. They assumed they would have snow, but they didn't actually have that much snow. But you wouldn't actually think it was shot in Poland, because it does look like Northern California and the winter and the Rockies almost. It's a fun little film. Again, I remember seeing it. It must have been on home video, and it always kind of stuck with me, even though I haven't actually seen it for years. But watching it again, it is a really fun, enjoyable film with nice little undertones to bigger themes, as far as obviously the butchering of millions of Native Americans and also Mexicans by the American government. You could argue that the soundtrack, the score, is a little bit obtrusive at times, but that's a kind of minor gripe. It is a lot of fun. It is fairly bloody, so if you're not a fan of blood, it's probably not a film for you. But it is a lot of fun, and certainly this edition on Scream Factory, it's a very nice print, and the extras are excellent. So thanks very much for watching this very random review of Ravenous. Please let me know in the comments below if you've seen Ravenous, or whether this review has whetted your appetite, and hopefully we'll see you again for more random reviews. This is Solitude Ronan saying farewell.